V-Ray RT, or V-Ray Realtime to give it its full title, can potentially provide a huge productivity boost for render artists using SketchUp, given that as we work, RT's interactive rendering capabilities can oftentimes eliminate the need for us to sit around waiting for test renders in order to evaluate the latest tweaks and changes that we have made to our scenes. Activating an RT render is as easy as clicking the RT button found on the main V-Ray toolbar. After a few moments of scene parsing or processing, this will bring up the V-Ray frame buffer window with an RT render in progress. The brilliant thing here is that the V-Ray frame buffer has now become a completely interactive render window. Indeed, if I just go ahead and change my camera view in the SketchUp viewport, we can see RT updating the V-Ray frame buffer window as we go. Fantastic, of course, for being able to quickly try out a variety of shot types and framings for our scene. And of course, camera position is not the only thing that we can work with. We can alter scene materials, scene lighting, camera exposure, global illumination settings, and much more, all whilst having RT update right then and there for us. Not that we have to watch the V-Ray frame buffer update if we don't want to. If we, say, want to hunt around for a better view of our scene, but without the natural lag that this live update brings, we can easily freeze or pause the RT view from up on the main toolbar, find the camera position that we want, and then unpause RT in order to continue the rendering process. Now, one thing we do need to be aware of with regard to RT is that it is by default set to simply keep on rendering. In other words, the image that we see here will continue to be rendered and refined for as long as we leave the frame buffer window open. To cancel the rendering, we can either close the V-Ray frame buffer or use the regular abort render function of the escape key once we have focus on the V-Ray frame buffer window, that is. Tweaking RT's render settings is very simple, as all we need to do is open up the options editor, come to the RT engine rollout, and then work with the simplified set of controls that we see here. One of the important ones, and one that I pretty much always change from default when working on a project, being the max render time value. Oftentimes, and particularly so in the early stages of a project, even something as short as a half a minute or so can be more than enough for us to quickly evaluate any changes that we have made and then decide whether or not we want to keep them. If we do set a max render time value though, we also need to put a check in the Stop When Render Done box. We also have the option when using the RT engine to switch between CPU and GPU based rendering. If we have either a workstation class graphics card or maybe even a high-end gaming rig, then we will oftentimes find that using the GPU version of RT can give us a significant increase in terms of the speed at which we can render a given frame. One of the brilliant things about the GPU version of V-Ray RT being that it is not tied to using any particular manufacturer's graphics boards, as it can run using both the OpenCL and CUDA languages. Although one possible limitation that we may need to take into account here is the fact that the entire scene we are wanting to render does have to fit into our graphics card's available memory. If we don't have sufficient memory available for both the scene and materials that we are wanting to work with, then we may find ourselves running into memory issues at render time. Another point we should probably make here is the fact that V-Ray RT has not been designed as some kind of preview renderer for the regular production engine. Chaos Group themselves go to great lengths to make it clear that this is a fully featured production renderer in its own right. One cool thing that RT does do, though, is use the same material, lighting and rendering workflow as the production engine, meaning that switching between the two, should we want or need to, is generally speaking a very easy and trouble-free thing to do. In fact, let's perform a quick test. Let's set a maximum RT render time here of something around about 2 minutes, put a check in the Stop When Render Done box, and then take an RT render of our scene. Once done, we can turn on the region render function found in the V-Ray frame buffer, select a slice out of the center of our image, and this time take a render using the regular production engine. What we see now is that there really is very little difference at all between the two renders we have taken. Lighting, material representation, shadows, all have the same basic look and feel to them. the only reason we see any difference at all here is because the RT engine is using path tracing algorithms, whilst the production engine at this moment in time is not. As we say then, switching between the two engine types, generally speaking, is no problem at all. Now, whilst, as we have seen, the RT engine does have its own set of controls housed in their own rollout, we also need to keep in mind the fact that these are not the only options in the options editor that are going to affect how our RT renders work. For instance, our choice of colour mapping will influence how colours look in the final image. The on-off switch for the GI controls will also have an effect, as it will essentially disable the use of secondary or bounced light in our RT renders. The V-Ray RT engine then can bring an awful lot to the table for studios and freelance artists who are using V-Ray as a licensed renderer, given that it really does have the potential to speed up certain parts of our production pipeline in a very measurable way.